recording it because we know that there are people who weren't able to get to all of the webinars, so we're going to record them and then they're going to be hosted on the Keeping Bristol Safe Partnership website after the week is finished. So we're currently just going to record all of them, and then later we'll be able to give links out for other people in your organisation. So we're going to ask that you please mute yourself for the duration of this conference, this workshop today, and also that you switch your cameras off. So if you could just do that now. Lynn is going to keep her camera on and not mute herself, but everyone else, if you could turn your cameras off and also press your mute button, then that will make it simpler for the recording. We won't get lots of distractions of people moving around, and also it means that the clarity of what you can hear will be better. So whilst we're running through this workshop today, you may find that you've got a question, and obviously you're now going to be on mute with your camera off. So if you have any questions, the way that we'd like to deal with those is by putting them in the chat box, in the chat function on Teams. So you'll be able to just click on that little speech bubble and write a question in there. It may be that some of those questions we can answer during the session, and Lynn will be able to look at them towards the end, and we can give you some answers. But if we can't do it as we're going along, this is quite a short session, then what we'll do is we'll make sure that those questions get answered afterwards, and we'll be able to send that out to you. Just a quick reminder then, cameras off, microphones off, and I'm going to hand over now to Lynn, who's going to lead us, and I'm sure she'll introduce herself and her role as she starts to do that. Over to you, Lynn.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Lynn Franklin. I'm Head of Safeguarding with Avon and Wiltshire Mental Health Partnership. And today I'm going to be discussing emotional health and wellbeing. Can you just set the first poll going, Sarah? So in the session, we're going to have 3 questions just for your thoughts on certain areas and to sort of tie it in so that you don't have to listen to my voice constantly for 45 minutes. There's also a video contained within the presentation. So the first question that I would like you to consider and use the poll is around whether or not, how aware are you of your own mental emotional health? And it's a multiple choice question. So if you could just give that some thought briefly.
The poll should be showing on your screen now, so that you can choose one of the 3 options of yes, no, or occasionally.
While that's going, I'll just carry on talking to you about what the show is going to, what the session is going to include. So I'm going to be talking about emotional health and wellbeing, exploring a little bit about what they mean, looking at it in the context of COVID-19 and the last couple of years and how that is still impacting on our service delivery and ourselves. Looking at how we can recognise good emotional health and what might the signs be of declining emotional health. Look at the impact of emotional health on our interactions and why it's relevant to safeguarding, as this is National Safeguarding Week, and looking at where you can go for help or to raise concerns. And as Sarah said, you can ask questions by leaving them in the chat. How is it going, Sarah? Shall I just carry on and then we can take a break and look in a minute?
I can't see it currently.
No, I can't see it either. Never mind.
I can. It's all in here. I can see it. We've currently got 67% of the audience saying that they're very aware of their own emotional health. 32% saying occasionally they are.
Okay.
And no one said no, they're not aware.
Okay, well that's good. That's good. So let's go through then and talk about what each of them means. So looking at well-being first. Well-being is it's not simply an absence of having a disease or some sort of infirmity. It is made up of distinct sections. So you have like a biological element, a physical health element, a psychological element, and a social element to it. And all three support your general sense of well-being. So the World Health Organization defines well-being as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And obviously the emotional element is just one part of that. It is just as important as the physical state, and it sort of shows that parity of esteem really around the interface between physical health and mental health, and how it all comes together to give you that general sense of well-being. The other thing to be aware of is the fact that your sense of well-being, as you will know, can change from day to day, month to month, and is very dependent on all sorts of factors. So when you then put that together with your emotional health, again, being emotionally healthy is about more than just being free of any kind of diagnosed condition. So it's not just about a diagnosis of depression or anxiety or any other psychological problem. It's much more than that. It is about your general sense of well-being, your interactions with others, how you respond to feedback and criticisms, looking at how you interpret what others might say to you. If you're not feeling emotionally well, it can affect your feeling of self-confidence. It's about how you manage and express your emotions and how you cope with daily stresses in life. It is something that is absolutely essential for us to build and maintain with other people in order to progress in our roles and social lives. So, given all that, prior to COVID, we were all very busy, even before COVID came along. I don't know how many people would recognise this kind of scenario. I quite often think at the moment of having too many tabs open in my head. It feels sometimes like I've got competing drawers that are being opened and shut, and far too many tabs. And when that happens, I notice that I can't think creatively at all when that happens. What happens is that I go into automatic mode, dealing with something, passing it on, but it's very, there's no sort of creative thinking around it. And it's something that really drains us. So we need to be able to think, let ourselves slow down, turn off some of those tabs, sometimes take a break, go and walk around the garden, just allow ourselves to have time to stop and think and reboot. So why is it important for us to consider our emotional health and general well-being? So as we've already mentioned, it has an impact on others. So the state of our emotional health will impact on other people, on our work and our performance, and has an impact on safety. So if you are not feeling emotionally well and you are not managing it, and you've lost your ability to respond to it in a positive way, then that can have an impact on your work life, on how you manage those challenges at work and at home. And that can obviously, if you're working in a clinical or a caring environment, have an impact on the way you interact with your colleagues and with patients, which can lead to sometimes patient safety incidents, for example. The skills to maintain good emotional health are key to succeeding and thriving within our professional lives. And you'll hear things like people's resilience. We talk about people being able to respond flexibly to crises and other people who are described in a less positive way when they start to show some of their emotions. So one of the things I want to ask is, would you feel able to ask for help if you were feeling emotionally fragile at work? I think there's a poll question for that. And while we're talking about that, if you look at the circle on the graphic on the screen, that is showing how you are at the centre with your family, your social network, your community and work around you, which are all part of your social network. And then around that are various elements which might interact with it. So, you know, are your relationships in a good place? Are you able to get out and have some activities which are beneficial to you? Do you have any hobbies? Do you exercise? What's your diet like? It's all those kind of things which input into your general sense of well-being and your emotional health.
So we've got some responses on the poll, Lynn.
Okay.
So
yep.
For yes, we've got 46% of people saying they do feel able to ask for help when emotionally fragile. We've got 5% of people saying no, and 48% of people saying maybe.
Okay.
And 95 people, 96 now have taken part in that.
Okay, we can have a look at those. That's it's good that we've got almost 50% of people saying they do feel able, because I suspect that is maybe would not have been possible. We've had a lot of very positive interactions and support being raised for staff because of COVID. So yeah, that's positive. What I want to do now is move on to have a look at what the impact of COVID really, and just ask you to consider what did, I don't know if all of you saw this, feel free to comment on if you did, but this is a poster that was put up and it says what it is really. It's showing comic heroes raising praise to the NHS, to social services, etc. And that had not so much this picture, obviously, but sort of that whole ethos that we had in the last 2 years created some of its own issues. So if I just move on to the impact of COVID, what we had was different senses of value. So we had some people who were working on the front line, absolutely exhausted, facing tremendous pressures, and we saw, you know, some of you may have been involved with it, some of you will have seen it directly, other people will have seen it on the news or heard about it or experienced it from a personal perspective. But some other people that weren't there was a sense of well, I'm not supporting the effort, I'm working away from the front line. Some people maybe didn't see the necessarily the value of what they were doing, or felt that they should not be being accepting praise around those kind of issues. So that in itself had it had positives and negatives. And then also what you heard was a lot of staff on the front line saying things like it made them feel uncomfortable to be regarded as heroes. They saw themselves when they were operating on the front line as doing their jobs under very, very difficult circumstances. The other thing that has obviously happened is we've changed the way we work. We've looked at a lot more remote working, and that happens for across the board, really. If you're in a support role, then quite a lot of people were working remotely through the screen. A lot of patient contacts were happening remotely through the screen, which left practitioners feeling very vulnerable because they weren't able to use the same skill sets that they'd used before to assess people. There's a risk that you can't quite see what's happening, you can't read people's emotions in the same way via a screen as you can face to face. There's a lot of issues around people feeling that they need to prove that they are working when they're working at home, that they are busy. 86% of people who were surveyed felt that they needed to prove to their bosses that they were working hard and that they did deserve to be in their jobs, because prior to COVID there was a huge sense that people working at home were not as busy as you were when you were in the office. The other thing that we've had to adjust to is making our contacts. We've become very good at making contacts via the screen, but it doesn't give you the same sense of personal social contact. I think that's something as humans we miss, that personal touch, that link with other people in our family, with people we work with. When you look at somebody and you're having Teams meetings, for example, or other social networks, what you see is a bank of people. So, for example, one of the things you might get is a bank of people who don't agree with the point you're making. And when you're doing it on Teams call, what you see is you literally see a bank of people who are shaking their heads or not engaging or something quite negative from it. If you were in a face-to-face meeting, what you see, that is diffused across the room. You can pick out people who are not part of that, who maybe are seeing the point that you're trying to make. And that can be, it's a whole new remit that we hadn't really had before in terms of how that works and the way it impacts on people when we're working remotely. So sometimes it's okay to say, actually, I've had enough. I don't want to be a human today. I just want to go and have a little mini meltdown, jump around randomly, walk around the garden, say what I really think in the garden when nobody else can hear me, and just take 5. So if you're feeling like that, totally overwhelmed, had enough, but it's you know, a one-off, a sense that you just need to take a bit of a break, you need to take 5, then this is tips just for a quick de-escalation of the way you're feeling. Step outside, ask if you can just take a step, go outside, walk around the garden, go and get yourself a drink, do some deep breathing, go and sit yourself somewhere quiet, away from screens, away from phones, where you can just let your brain relax, let yourself settle down a little bit. Do something that you enjoy doing. I mean, I quite often used to have, which is going to sound really strange when I'm talking about, but something like a crossword or something beside the computer that you can just do, you know, Sudoku, things like that. People like doing anything is different that just gives you something else to do for 5 minutes. Go and sit in your car and listen to some music that's belting out. Just give yourself a little stretch, write down some positive things so that you can just refocus your brain on relaxing and being a bit positive, because when you're feeling overwhelmed, everything feels undoable. So when we're looking at feeling like that and managing our mental health and our emotional well-being, and things are getting on top of us, what you'll hear a lot about is resilience. So I just wanted to explore a little bit about what resilience actually means. It is about the ability to adapt to stressful situations and crises. It doesn't take it away, it doesn't stop it happening, but when you're stressed, the adversity and the trauma you're facing, you'll still feel the anger, you'll still feel the grief and the pain and the anxiety that goes with it. But when you're emotionally resilient and you are maintaining that, you will be able to manage it better, and you'll be able to respond to it in a better way and a more constructive way. So it's about saying, you know, you are still facing all of these challenges. You can be a strong person dealing with multiple challenges, and it's still okay to say, I'm not okay, I'm struggling a bit here, I need some help. And I think that's one of the key messages I would give throughout this, is just to say it is okay to say, I need some help here. So we're going to move on now to looking at emotional health under pressure. What that means, and then look at some of the signs and symptoms around physical and emotional signs that you are under pressure, and what that might mean. So generally speaking, when you are under pressure and you've got multiple things going on, it will be referred to, it's stress. It's a state of mental or emotional strain or tension that has arisen because of some adverse situation, or something that is putting pressure on you. Deadlines, multiple deadlines piling up, other demands coming in, something goes wrong in the morning, you've got to get to work, child is really poorly, and you've got to rearrange everything. So all of those kind of things, and that creates stress. And it's how we manage it. So it occurs when demands on your time and on your emotional well-being exceed your perceived ability to cope with it. And managing that is an element which is essential to your personal well-being. It's really important not to compare yourself with other people, not to say, well, X does this, who can cope with that, why can't I? Because what you don't know is what is going on in their background. You don't know whether or not they have multiple support network at home, or whether they have got other multiple crises and this seemingly small thing has tipped them over, or whether they're managing it better than you, apparently because they haven't got anything else going on at that moment. And yes, this is a crisis, but they can stop and focus on it. So there isn't a typical level for anybody. It is an individual response, and you will respond differently to different things. So it's very important that you don't just compare yourself to other people. What is important is to realise that you do need to manage it. So if you are not managing your stress well, then potentially that can impact negatively on you in both the short and the long term. And that's what we're going to have a look at now. So if your emotional health is under pressure, these are some of the potential physical health warnings that you might see. And I'm sure all of you at times have felt some of these. So feeling exhausted or having trouble sleeping, feeling generally drained and just very lethargic, feeling breathless. Sometimes you get that sense of just sort of almost panicky feeling, I can't get enough air in. Sometimes that's associated with a feeling of feeling a bit, your chest feels a bit tight, there's no pain, but you're just feeling a bit anxious inside. You've got stomach ache, headaches and dizziness. Some people will show signs of weight loss and or weight gain, depending on your personality. I've done both. I've lost weight and I've gained weight depending on what the nature of the pressure is or the stress is. People also report feeling sick, feeling nauseated, unable to eat, swallowing a lot. So sometimes people will just swallow very nervously, their mouth will feel very dry. All signs that possibly you are under significant stress which you need support with. So if you're looking at emotional signs, again, very normal part of life, can be positive and negative, but generally your emotional senses will be about feeling overwhelmed, feeling anxious or irritated, having that horrible feeling a bit on the edge, bit internal shaking, feeling a bit nervous. People will frequently present as having a lot of a loss of confidence in themselves, having a low self-esteem, and generally have difficulty concentrating and making decisions. What I would like you to do now, can we do the next poll, Sarah, to look at what can you do to look after your own emotional health? And this one is hopefully going to come up as a word cloud so that we can share with people. Whilst you're doing that, I've just got a video for about 5 minutes, so I'm just going to try and give that chance to launch while you're doing the poll. That's not working.
To share some of the answers from the poll, Lynn. I
Yeah.
don't know if you can see it whilst you're sharing. So we've got lots of things to do with walking, actually. So we've got people who are going for walks with their dogs, just walking, going for walks on the beach, walks in the woods. So lots of walking things. There's some stuff around sleep, and then some self-care things around things like exercising, gym, yoga. There's some comments around being with friends and family. So there's a few different ones talking about friends and family. There's listening to music, reading books, knitting, going for a run. So quite a lot of different. The one that's coming up big in the middle is walk, because I think that's been mentioned by quite a few people, is going for walks.
That's really good, isn't it? We'll be able to share it, will we? I think.
Yes, so I'll be able to save it
up.
up. Yes, absolutely, we can. And people should be able to see the results either in the chat or in the middle of the screen. Mine's come up in the middle of the screen, but if not, it will be in the chat. So there is some stuff there as well about doing things like specific things like controlled breathing, exercises and things like that are there as well.
Brilliant.
There's 123 responses altogether to that, so that's excellent.
That's good. So we can leave that running for a bit, can't we?
Yeah,
I don't know if you can actually, but so the next one, I've got a video because I thought that might help you listen to somebody else, which is about tips for relaxation from Mind. So I will just play that. Okay.
We're not getting any sound with it, Lynn, but
Oh,
it's playing. It's playing, so I don't know if that matters.
Lynn, it won't be to do with your headset. At the top, there should be a button that says share with sound on the top of your screen on Teams. And then the sound should work if you click one of that, if you scroll along.
It'll be where you shared your screen originally, Lynn, where you say, when it says share, is at the top. There's a couple of people I think who have written that they can't see the video. I don't think they can see the screen. So we'll just get the link and share it with you afterwards so that you can watch it afterwards if you haven't been able to see it.
Were you able to hear any of that?
No, the sound didn't work. So Lynn, if you send me the link afterwards, I'll share it with everybody.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. It works every time I do it, but of course I can't see it if it's working outside. Okay, so oh, there we go. So now I'm going to move into looking at self-care tips and some tools and things that you can use, and that, you know, entirely up to you. Some people will have preferences for different styles, but just some ideas. In terms generally, allow yourself to take care of yourself, connect with others, use your social network and your support network. So, you know, that can vary from some people who are very outgoing, having very big circles of friends that they link in with. Others have one or two people, but maintain those relationships and use them when you're, especially when you're feeling very under pressure. Learn how to recognise your change in emotions, and looking at the results that came in earlier on, people are very aware of that and are looking at how they are able to, feeling they're able to express themselves, which is really good. And just take time, as we've said earlier, be in the moment, be mindful, thinking about just taking that time to relax a bit. So here I've just got a couple of a checklist. It's just something you can go down to see, do a bit of a stock take in terms of where you are, looking at, you know, if you've got someone you can talk to about your feelings, you've got friends you can trust, looking at what your sleep is like, looking at what your diet is like, physical activity. It's all things that you're already talking about, and identifying that you do to help yourself. It's just there as a support if you need it. The self-help mental health self-care wheel looks at things from various perspectives. So looking at things from a physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, personal and professional perspective. So looking at things like you do access regular medical care, you take exercise, you're sleeping well, you take time just to relax and look after yourself, you reflect, you're looking at sort of possibly meditation, you have support groups if you need them, maybe be creative. Some people keep a journal. Sometimes if you're not sure of what your triggers for stress are, you could keep a stress journal just to see how it's going and see if you can identify any of those triggers. Looking at practicing forgiveness, spending time in nature. I think for me, spiritual one is very much, it is about spending time in nature as looking at, I mean, for me, what I like doing is going along and walking along the beach. That for me is, I find that really relaxing and very helpful in terms of calming myself. Obviously can't do that on too much of a regular basis because I don't live by the sea, but when I do, that's my preferred place to go. personally looking at how you know, spending time with your family, making plans, all various areas that you can have a look at. And then you can do this. So this wheel shows you, it's broken down into various segments with some ideas and things that you can do. But you can ask yourself, so you can draw this wheel yourself, or just draw a box with the headings and look at, so how am I feeling physically? How am I feeling emotionally at the moment? How am I feeling spiritually at the moment? Am I in need of a booster? How am I coping? What can I do to help myself? And then also you can use it to think about, what can I do to help others? So if you've got colleagues or friends who are struggling, you can sort of think about that as well. What could I do to help? Another tool which is similar but sort of slightly different approach is looking at a traffic light table. So looking at, you know, green, you're exercising, you're looking after yourself physically, your body is well looked after, you're sleeping all right, you have a good diet, etc. All the way down through amber, where you are not exercising so much, you are probably starting to slip into snacking rather than completely healthy diet, and then down to red, which is actually you need to be taking some action about that. But that's another way of structuring your thinking and thinking about, what can I do about it? How can I address these concerns? And some people find things like that helpful and other people don't. So if you're looking at generally your sense of well-being, these are called, or people refer to them as the happiness chemicals. So what this graphic does is look at dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin and endorphins, and looks at how it might affect you if you're you know, if they're a bit low, but also how to increase them. And what you'll notice is that in nearly every aspect, anxiety, low self-esteem, mood swings and general sense of feeling under the weather, not really very robust in terms of your emotional well-being, is in every single box. But a lot of the things that you've already identified that you're doing, so things like exercising regularly, doing something creative, contacting family, staying in touch with your family groups and friends, some meditation, things like creativity, laughter, eating dark chocolate and spicy food. That's always a good one for me, for your endorphins. All things that will help you build up those levels and help you respond and improve your sense of well-being. So why is your emotional well-being and health relevant to safeguarding? And for me, it is about it's sort of multifaceted, really. It's about the potential overspill at work. So if you're feeling very emotionally drained, if you're feeling very stressed and you're starting to snap, or you're starting to feel, my son has a saying where he will just sort of say, you're a bit feeling a bit stressed today, and it's generally an indication that I'm not as calm or responding quite as calmly as maybe I would like to think that I do. And if you're feeling like that and you're hitting a lot of challenges at work, there is a risk that it will overspill with your colleagues and with service users sometimes. If you are distracted and have reduced concentration, lack of focus, then there is a risk of something being missed or mistakes being made. We have an exhaustive workforce at the moment, and the amount of pressure that everybody has been under is only going to make that more so. So we have staff who weren't able to go and visit families for prolonged periods of time who are now wanting to do that. We've got the COVID vaccination mandatory vaccinations, which is having an impact on workforce. We have staff who are going off sick themselves. We are actually having more people at the moment off. In my team, we've got more people off at the moment than we had through most of the pandemic. And there's also that risk of, you know, that sort of compassion fatigue. It's been going on a long time. People are very tired. They've been working really, really long hours, and we need to be able to support them. And that potentially is a risk to our service delivery and to our service users. If you need support, most of you have already identified areas where you can go, things that you are doing yourself. This is just some areas where you can go, talk to your GP, staff support. There's mental health crisis lines. Professional bodies quite often provide counselling or other support if necessary. Mental health organisation have got lots of different publications around how to sleep better, just some guides really, how-to guides. Then you've got CRU's, Citizen Advice, Samaritans, and also Freedom to Speak Up champions at work if you've got concerns about somebody who's not coping and where it is having an impact. This one, for me, says it all. It is about we're all in the same storm, but we're in very different boats, and the way that we're responding to it is very different. It just was something that really came home to me when I looked at that one. And then I just want to finish by saying it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to stop and start again, to say no, take time out to rest, and that includes multiple meetings, actually just stopping and saying, I really need to get a drink, go for a walk around the garden, look after my circulation, walk around a bit, stand up. It's okay to let go, and it's okay to admit that you're not okay. And that is the end. Thank you very much for listening. Have we got any questions, Sarah?
So one of the questions that we've had a couple, sorry, Lynn.
I was going to stop sharing my screen, that's all right.
Okay, yeah, go for it. One of the questions we've had a couple of times is about whether it's okay to share your slides so that people can have a look at them afterwards. Are you? Yeah. So what I'll do in that case is I will send them out via the Eventbrite link. So you should get a copy of those slides. I'll do that straight after the session. But now is thank you very much, Lynn, for sharing that with us. But now's your opportunity. If you've got any questions, please just pop them in the chat whilst we've got Lynn here. We've got a few minutes that we can use. You're getting a lot of thank yous. Lynn, multiple thank yous that are just coming into the chat now when that you can probably see now that you've stopped sharing, because it's hard to do both. But if anyone has any questions for Lynn whilst we've got her here, now would be a really good time to ask. So we've got somebody who's saying that they're going to share, in fact a couple of people will share the presentation and the information with their teams, and we'd really encourage you to do that. Because I think the bit that really struck me is that boat picture, and also the bit where you said that all, like, the workforce is exhausted in all services. So being able to help people to recognise and then know where to go for help is really important. So unless there are any questions, I'm just going to launch a final poll with you, hopefully. And this one is just a bit of an evaluation. So I've put the link to the Mind video that we didn't have any sound when we were listening to it. I found it on YouTube and I've put that in the chat. So before you leave, I would recommend people just getting hold of that that link and copying it, because sometimes when you leave the meeting you lose access to the chat. So copy that link so that you can watch it afterwards. So we've got one question which is a bit of an evaluation really, which says what is the one key thing you will take away from the session today? So just to encourage people to just take part in that poll. This is the only kind of evaluation we're going to send you, is this this little poll now, rather than like a long form. So we'd just like to know what you're going to take away. So I don't know if you can see them now. You're not sharing, Lynn. You might be able to see them.
I can't actually.
Okay, so we've got things like using the graphics and the health wheel and some of those quotes that we are. It's okay not to be. It's okay not to be okay. About the care tips, about your healthy body and thinking about that and refocusing your brain, thinking about the adverse effects. The traffic light table, I thought that was really helpful too. I agree, whoever's writing about the traffic light table, of just being able to sort of do a little self-evaluation. We've got people writing about different job roles, about how to manage better, about resetting your brain. The boat picture.
Yeah, people seem to, the boat picture I think has come up a couple of times, hasn't it?
Yeah,
it
and
really
I think
resonated with me.
Yeah, and because we've often heard things like we're all in the same boat, and actually we're not, are we? We're just all in the same sea. Same storm, different boat. So we've got a whole lot of things in the word cloud as part of our evaluation. Stop and reset is one, and things about happy hormones.
Yeah.
So now that everybody has had a chance, I know that there was a few people who couldn't see the screen, so you won't have been able to see that. So I'm hopeful that I'll be able to send that out to you so you can have a look. But hopefully reading some of those out has helped with that. But what I'm going to do is just thank Lynn very much for coming and sharing with that. When you were joining, you might not have been aware, but there was a whole lot of technical problems happening about 10 minutes before this started. And Lynn has, you couldn't tell, Lynn, once you'd started. So that was well done for that. And thank you very much for your time sharing that with us today. And so many people are saying how helpful this has been for them. So in the interests of improved self-care, we've finished 10 minutes early, and so we're going to give you 10 minutes where you're not looking at your screen. I'll stop the recording. If you've got colleagues who would like to be able to watch this and weren't able to come today, I know there was well over 130 people at one point in the meeting. So, but if you've got colleagues who'd like to see this, then we will send out links for the recordings. It will probably be next week that they'll be available, but they'll be on the Keeping Bristol Safe Partnership website, and we'll send out the links. So look out for that, and we'll send them out through all our usual channels across the 5 Safeguarding Adults boards. But thank you very much for attending. Thank you, Lynn, for your presentation, and goodbye.
Thank you.